Chapter 6. The First Flying Lesson. Neville Longbottom stirred in his four-poster bed, the early morning light filtering through the windows of the Gryffindor dormitory. Rubbing the sleep from his eyes, he sat up and stretched, a mixture of excitement and nervousness bubbling in his chest. Today was the day he would finally find out his schedule for the week. Quickly dressing in his school robes and tying his Gryffindor scarf around his neck, Neville made his way down the staircase and into the common room. The room was already buzzing with activity as other students chatted and laughed, but Neville's attention was drawn to the notice board hanging on the wall. Eager to see what the week had in store for him, Neville stepped closer to the notice board, only to be halted by the groans of the other first-year students who had already seen it. Confused, Neville furrowed his brow and read the announcement for himself. Flying lessons would begin on Thursday, and Gryffindor would be sharing the class with Slytherin. The thought of facing Malfoy on a broomstick filled him with fear. Neville had never even been on a broomstick before in his life, a fact that puzzled many of his classmates. As Neville's eyes lingered on the announcement, memories of his childhood flooded back to him. His grandmother, Augusta Longbottom, had always been fiercely protective of him and had kept him sheltered from anything she deemed too dangerous. One particular incident stood out in Neville's mind. When he was around 7 years old, he had discovered an old broomstick hidden away in the attic. Excited by the prospect of flying, he had begged his grandmother to let him try it out, but Augusta had been horrified by the suggestion. "Neville, you must never go near a broomstick," she had said, her voice firm and unyielding. "Flying is not a skill for Longbottoms. It's far too dangerous, and I will not have you putting yourself at risk." As Neville picked at his food, Hermione suddenly launched into a monologue about flying tips she had gleaned from a library book called Quidditch Through the Ages. Hermione's voice rang out. "When mounting your broomstick, always ensure you have a firm grip on the handle and lean slightly forward to maintain balance. Keep your eyes focused straight ahead and try to relax your body to allow for better maneuverability." Neville's eyes widened as he hung on to her every word, desperate for any knowledge that might help him navigate the skies later that day. Hermione continued, her tone confident and knowledgeable. "When it comes to steering, gentle movements are key. Shift your weight subtly in the direction you want to turn, and remember to anticipate your movements to maintain control." Neville nodded fervently, mentally noting down Hermione's instructions. However, as Hermione delved deeper into the intricacies of flying techniques, the rest of the Gryffindor table began to grow restless. Just as the tension at the table reached its peak, her lecture was abruptly interrupted by the arrival of the post owls swooping down with letters and packages. A barn owl swooped down towards Neville, carrying a small package in its talons. Neville's heart skipped a beat as he recognized the distinctive handwriting on the parcel. It was from his grandmother. "Dear Neville, I hope this message finds you well. I wanted to express my heartfelt congratulations on being sorted into Gryffindor. I am so proud of the wizard you are becoming. Enclosed is a little gift for you, something I believe will not only serve as a token of celebration, but also a practical aid in your magical endeavors. Remember, I am always here for you, cheering you on from afar. Keep shining bright, my dear grandson. With all my love, Gran." Neville eagerly tore the tag off the package, carefully tucking the note into his pocket before eagerly unwrapping the gift inside. "It's a remembrall!" Neville exclaimed, his eyes lighting up with realization as he held up the small, round object for his friends to see. "Gran knows I forget things. This tells you if there's something you've forgotten to do. Look, you hold it tight like this, and if it turns red, oh." Neville's explanation came to an abrupt halt as the remembrall abruptly glowed scarlet in his palm, signaling that he had indeed forgotten something important. Before Neville could unravel the mystery, Malfoy snatched the Remembrall from Neville's hand, a smirk playing on his lips as he taunted the young Gryffindor. Before Neville could react, Harry and Ron leaped to their feet, ready to defend their friend. Just as tensions rose, the sharp voice of Professor McGonagall sliced through the commotion. "What's going on?" Professor McGonagall's tone was firm and unwavering.
"Malfoy's got my Remembrall, Professor,"
said Neville, his voice tinged with a hint of embarrassment at his inability to handle the situation himself. Malfoy, sensing the disapproval in McGonagall's gaze, scowled and promptly dropped the Remembrall back onto the table. "Just looking," he muttered, before retreating with Crabbe and Goyle trailing behind him. Neville let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding as the tension dissipated. He turned to Harry and Ron with gratitude shining in his eyes.
"Thanks for sticking up for me, guys,"
he said, his voice filled with genuine appreciation. Harry and Ron exchanged a knowing look before Harry replied, "Hey Neville, don't worry about it. That's what friends are for, right?" Ron nodded in agreement, a reassuring smile on his face. Neville couldn't concentrate on his lessons for the rest of the day as the clock ticked closer to 3:30. The anticipation for his first flying lesson was making it hard for him to focus on anything else. When the time finally arrived, Neville and the Gryffindors hurried down the front steps of Hogwarts, excitement bubbling within them. The warm sun bathed the grounds, and a gentle breeze played with their robes as they made their way towards the smooth lawn on the opposite side of the grounds, away from the looming Forbidden Forest. Neville stood nervously among his fellow Gryffindor classmates on the Quidditch pitch, feeling a mix of excitement and dread churning in his stomach. The Slytherins were already there, their green and silver colours glinting in the sunlight as 20 broomsticks lay in neat rows on the ground, waiting to be mounted. Their flying instructor, Madam Hooch, a formidable witch with short grey hair and piercing yellow eyes, arrived on the scene, her presence commanding respect. "Well, what are you all waiting for? Everyone stand by a broomstick. Come on, hurry up!" Neville's heart raced as he approached one of the broomsticks, his palms sweaty with nervousness. He tried to steady his trembling hands as Madam Hooch instructed the students to stick out their right hand over their brooms and command them to rise with a firm "Up! Up!" The students shouted in unison, their voices echoing across the pitch. Neville felt a surge of anticipation as he willed his broomstick to obey his command, hoping beyond hope that he would finally conquer his fear of flying. But as he uttered the command, nothing happened. His broom remained stubbornly still, unmoving beneath his outstretched hand. Panic gripped Neville as he tried again and again, but to no avail. His heart sank as he watched his classmates' brooms obediently soar into their hands, while his own stayed rooted to the ground. When the majority of students had successfully summoned their broom, Madam Hooch demonstrated how to mount the broom without sliding off, her movements fluid and precise. As Madam Hooch walked up and down the rows, correcting their grips, Neville felt a wave of relief when she didn't stop at his side. He gripped the broom tightly, trying to remember her instructions. He couldn't help but smile when she reprimanded Malfoy for his incorrect technique, informing him he had been doing it wrong for years. "Now, when I blow my whistle, you kick off from the ground, hard," Madam Hooch instructed, her voice clear and commanding. "Keep your broom steady, rise a few feet, and then come straight back down by leaning forward slightly. On my whistle, 3, 2. In a moment of panic, Neville pushed off from the ground before the whistle had even touched Madam Hooch's lips. The sudden movement caught everyone by surprise, and Madam Hooch's sharp voice rang out. "Come back, boy!" But it was too late. Neville shot into the air like a rocket, his broomstick propelling him higher and higher with each passing second. He rose straight up, climbing rapidly into the sky, much higher than he had ever anticipated, 12 feet, 20 feet, and beyond. The ground below seemed to shrink away, and Neville's initial fear turned into sheer terror. His face went as white as a sheet as he looked down and saw the world falling away beneath him. A gasp escaped his lips as he felt himself slipping sideways off the broomstick, unable to maintain his grip. In a terrible moment of realization, Neville knew he was going to fall. With a sickening thud and a painful crack, Neville hit the ground hard, landing face down in a heap on the grass. The impact knocked the wind out of him, and for a moment everything went dark as pain shot through his body. Despite the pain, Neville felt a sense of relief when Madame Hooch reassured him, her voice gentle and comforting.
"Come on, boy, it's all right, up you get,"
she said, helping him to his feet. His wrist throbbed with each movement, but Neville gritted his teeth and tried to stand. Madame Hooch turned to address the rest of the class, her tone firm and commanding. "None of you is to move while I take this boy to the hospital wing. You leave those brooms where they are, or you'll be out of Hogwarts before you can say Quidditch. Come on, dear," she added, gesturing for Neville to follow her, his face streaked with tears of pain and frustration, clutching his injured wrist. As Neville hobbled alongside Madame Hooch towards the hospital wing, he felt a mix of embarrassment, pain, and a tinge of hope as he approached the familiar doors of the infirmary. Madame Pomfrey, the Hogwarts matron, was quick to spot them as they entered. She rushed over, her expression a blend of concern and familiarity. "Back again so soon, Neville? What's happened this time?" she inquired, her tone gentle and comforting. Madame Hooch explained the situation to Madame Pomfrey, recounting how Neville's nerves had gotten the best of him during the flying lesson. He was extremely nervous and set off too quickly. He couldn't control the broom, fell off it and ended up with a broken wrist, Madame Hooch explained, her voice tinged with sympathy for the young Gryffindor. Madame Pomfrey smiled warmly at Neville, her eyes twinkling with reassurance. "Don't worry, Neville, I can fix bones in a heartbeat," she said, her confidence instilling a sense of calm in the young wizard. Despite the pain and embarrassment of the situation, Neville couldn't help but feel a flicker of relief, knowing that he was in good hands with Madame Pomfrey. With a nod and a kind smile, Madame Pomfrey turned to Madame Hooch, acknowledging the flying instructor with gratitude. "Thank you, Poppy. I'll take it from here," she said, her voice filled with warmth. Madame Hooch returned the nod, her own expression softening as she glanced back at Neville before quietly exiting the hospital wing. Madame Pomfrey guided Neville to one of the hospital beds, her brisk steps echoing in the quiet infirmary. "I'll be back in a minute, dear," she reassured him before disappearing momentarily, returning with a small bottle labelled Skelly Grow. Madame Pomfrey explained, "It doesn't taste very nice, but it will mend your broken wrist in an instant." With a snap of her fingers, she conjured a glass and poured the potion into it, the substance resembling thick, white milk. Neville hesitantly took a sip as Madame Pomfrey watched attentively. The liquid burned his mouth and throat as it descended, causing him to cough and splutter. Just as the discomfort peaked, he reached for the glass of pumpkin juice left by the matron. The soothing coolness of the juice alleviated the burning sensation, and Neville felt relief wash over him. To his amazement, the excruciating pain in his wrist subsided, and he tentatively flexed his hand, finding it whole and healed. "Incredible," Neville murmured in awe. Madame Pomfrey chuckled warmly at his reaction. "You'll be back to your old self in no time, Neville. I might have to get you a personalized hospital bed at this rate," she teased, her eyes twinkling with mirth. Feeling grateful for Madame Pomfrey's care and expertise, Neville thanked her sincerely before preparing to leave the hospital wing. With his mended wrist and spirits lifted, he made his way back to the Gryffindor common room. Neville trudged wearily towards the portrait of the fat lady, hoping for a warm and welcoming entrance to the Gryffindor common room after a long day. As he reached her, the fat lady peered down at him with a raised eyebrow.
Password, dear?
She inquired, her voice a melodic lilt. Neville's heart sank as he realized he had forgotten the password in his fatigue.
I'm sorry, I forgot it.
He admitted sheepishly. The fat lady's expression turned stern.
Without the password, I cannot let you in.
Knowing that the other Gryffindors were likely already asleep at this late hour, Neville resigned himself to his predicament. With a heavy sigh, he settled down on the cold stone floor, wrapping his robe tightly around himself in an attempt to stay warm. The fat lady, sensing Neville's despondency, began to sing a soft lullaby, her gentle voice filling the corridor with a soothing melody. Neville closed his eyes, trying to find comfort in the music as he drifted in and out of a restless sleep. Neville jolted awake each time the Bloody Baron passed by, his translucent figure sending shivers down Neville's spine. Despite the fat lady's comforting song, Neville found it difficult to rest peacefully, his nerves on edge in the eerie night.